You're just the IT guy. My CEO laughed while cutting my pay. He didn't know I owned the software keeping them alive. Hi, I'm Jesse, 36. And 6 months ago the CEO laughed in my face while cutting my benefits right before I legally pulled the plug on the software that kept his entire billion-dollar company alive. Yeah. That sentence still feels fake when I say it out loud. He leaned back in his chair, actually laughed, and said, "You're just the IT guy. You don't matter." Then he slid a folder across the table like he was doing me a favor. Inside, a 28% pay cut, gutted health insurance, fewer vacation days, and a reminder that I should be grateful to still have a chair. What he didn't know, what almost nobody knew, was that I owned the patent for the platform the company ran on. Every invoice, every client, every warehouse scan, all of it. Mine. And when he breached the contract, I revoked the license. Overnight, the system went dark. By morning, the stock was down 34%. By the next day, it was down 62%. By the end of the week, the company had lost over $1 billion in market value. Completely legal. Painfully quiet on my end. Absolute chaos on theirs. But rewind with me, because I didn't wake up one day as some corporate villain twirling a mustache. I started as the guy who fixed printers and reset passwords, working out of a mildewy apartment with 3 roommates, and student loans breathing down my neck. I spent years being invisible on purpose, because invisible people get to build things without being interrupted. And I built something that changed everything. Let me take you back to the beginning, 9 years ago, when I first walked into Apex Dynamics, thinking I'd made it. I was 27, fresh out of Georgia Tech with a degree in computer engineering, 72 grand in debt, and a dream of doing something that didn't involve manning the Genius Bar at the mall. Apex wasn't glamorous. They were operating out of a converted tire distribution center just outside Atlanta. Think exposed beams, flickering fluorescent lights, and breakroom coffee that tasted like burned plastic. But it was a full-time IT role, and they paid me $49,000 a year, which at the time felt like I was a king. I started out as a junior systems analyst. Most days, I was crawling under desks unplugging routers or explaining to middle managers why turning it off and on again actually works. The system we were running everything on was called Datamatrix Core, a Frankenstein monster of 2000s-era enterprise software that was so unstable we had 3 full-time employees whose job was literally just rebooting it when it crashed. I spent the first year learning it inside and out, logging every bug, every quirk, every absurd workaround. If the system hiccuped, I could tell you what had just been clicked, by who, and with what kind of keyboard. No one really noticed me unless something broke. And then it was my fault, even if it was a guy in accounting clicking on a phishing link labeled "Get rich fast." But after 2 years, something started to shift. The company was growing. More clients, more data, more strain. The system was holding together with duct tape and hope, and senior leadership started panicking. They brought in consultants, and the cheapest upgrade estimate we got was $19 million with a 2-year timeline. Naturally, the board said no. They decided to just optimize what we already had, which was basically like slapping a spoiler on a rusted-out Honda and calling it a race car. That's when the idea started. Late nights, weekends, vacations I didn't take. I began writing code. My code, something that didn't just patch over the old system's flaws, but replaced it entirely. Clean, scalable, intuitive. A backend that learned from usage. A frontend that didn't require 3 hours of training to open a report. Nobody knew I was doing it. Not my team, not management, not even my girlfriend at the time, Tara, a nurse who worked 12-hour shifts and came home to find me still in the same clothes, surrounded by coffee cups and code windows. She thought I was losing it. "You don't work for fun, Jesse," she said one night, tossing her keys on the counter. "You work to live." I didn't argue. I just nodded, kissed her forehead, and went back to debugging. She moved out 6 months later. But the night I finally launched my prototype? Worth it. The night I finished the build, I didn't celebrate. I just sat in my chair, stared at the screen, and whispered, "Please don't crash." Then I ran the first live simulation using real data pulled from Apex's system. It didn't just work, it obliterated the old system's performance. Reports that took 10 minutes to generate appeared in 3 seconds. Zero data corruption. Scaled like a dream. I ran it again. And again. Each time it delivered the same result, flawless execution. I called it Nova. Nerdy, I know, but it stood for Next Gen Operational Vector Architecture. Also, It sounded cool as hell. Like a weapon. It took me another 6 weeks to wrap the UI and encrypt the backend. Then I met with my lawyer buddy from college, Marcus, who did tech contracts out in San Jose. "You're building this on your own time?" he asked. "Yep. My hardware, my weekends, no company resources." He grinned. "Perfect. Then it's yours. File a provisional patent and get a licensing agreement in place before you even breathe a word to them." So I did. The next week, I asked my boss, Ron, the one VP who wasn't a total corporate zombie, if I could demo something I'd been working on. He looked suspicious. "This about that data loss last month?" "Kinda. I built a system that would have prevented it." We booked a small conference room. Ron watched the demos silently for 20 minutes. Then he took off his glasses and said, "We need to show this to the board. Now." I told him the deal. It was my IP. I'd license it to Apex for $50,000 a year, adjustable annually for inflation. I'd retain all ownership. They'd get full operational rights as long as my compensation and employment remained stable. Ron didn't blink. "That's cheap. We paid more than that last quarter just in emergency contractor fees." A week later, I found myself in the boardroom doing a live demo for the entire executive team, including CEO Harold Mendez. Ron sat next to me, nodding proudly. Midway through, the CFO asked, "And you built all of this?" "All of it," I said. "How much are we paying him again?" Harold joked. Everyone laughed. I smiled. That was the moment I should have seen it. The exact second when something shifted. I was no longer just the IT guy. I was the man with the keys to the kingdom. And kingdoms? They don't like being owned by peasants. So we signed the deal. Legal reviewed it. Marcus flew in to explain the clauses personally. The board nodded through most of it, barely listening. I think they assumed I'd get bored and sell it outright eventually. But I never would. That contract was my armor. They cut me a $12,000 bonus check and gave me a plaque that said, "Innovation Champion." I hung it over the water cooler in the IT department as a joke. Implementation took 5 weeks. On a Friday night, we flipped the switch. By Monday morning, Datamatrix Core was gone. Nova was live. No crashes. No data loss. Our help desk queue dropped by 70%. People started sending emails with subject lines like, "System is good?" Like they were scared to jinx it. Within 3 months, Apex's operations doubled. Client churn dropped to almost zero. New contracts poured in because we could finally deliver on what we promised. Harold gave a speech at the quarterly town hall where he said, "Apex is entering a new era of technical excellence." He didn't mention my name once. But I didn't care. I had my contract, and the system had my name buried in the code of every login sequence. I got a raise to $84,000. Respectable. Not amazing. But I wasn't in it for the salary. Until Harold retired. His replacement showed up wearing $900 sneakers and a Rolex the size of a doorknob. Gregory Vaughn, 35, MBA, Stanford. Former private equity guy who had optimized 6 companies, which meant he'd laid off half the staff and sold off the rest to the highest bidder. First time we met, he called me Jeremy. I corrected him. Twice. Didn't matter. His first week, he ordered motivational posters hung in every hallway. Disrupt or die. Excellence is a choice. You are replaceable. That one went up right outside my office. At first I laughed. Then I stopped laughing. Because Gregory wasn't just annoying, he was dangerous. He saw Apex as a spreadsheet. And I could feel him looking at my row and thinking, why is that guy paid so much? He called it streamlining. I called it step 1. March 12th, Thursday morning. I got a meeting invite from Gregory's assistant titled Compensation Realignment Discussion. No context. No attached documents. No one else invited. Conference room 4B. The firing room. No windows, soundproof walls used for sensitive conversations. I knew. I just didn't know how bad it would be. I walked in at 10 o'clock sharp. Gregory was already there, lounging like he was waiting for a cocktail. Next to him sat Janice, the new CFO he brought in from one of his previous companies. Mid-30s, power pantsuit, that finance shark aura where she could say, "We're reducing your oxygen intake," and make it sound like a logical market correction. There was also a lawyer in the corner. Quiet. Slick. Not introduced. Gregory smiled. "Jesse. Thanks for coming in. Saturday. We're making some strategic shifts, he said, lacing his fingers like he was hosting a TED Talk on corporate genocide. Part of our realignment includes performance-based compensation to bring us in line with current market standards. Janice slid a folder across the table. Inside, salary cut from $84,000 to $62,000. Annual bonus, eliminated. Health insurance, switched to high deductible, $5,500 out of pocket. PTO, dropped from 18 to 10 days. Retirement match, cut in half. I closed the folder. Looked up. You're serious? Janice nodded like she just explained that gravity exists. Gregory leaned forward. You've been here a long time. But let's be honest. Your infrastructure. Important, but not critical. You fix computers. You're not core to the mission. There it was. You fix computers. 9 years of development. A proprietary system that turned a failing mid-tier firm into a tech powerhouse. The foundation of every contract, every client, every dollar of growth. All of it built in my apartment in the dark, while people like him were posting about hustle culture on LinkedIn. And to this guy, I was the printer whisperer. If I don't sign this? I asked. He shrugged. Then we'll have to reevaluate your role. I sat there, jaw locked, adrenaline kicking. I knew what was in my contract. Knew what that clause said about maintaining agreed-upon compensation. They were breaking it. I signed the papers. Silently. With my right hand shaking so hard I had to brace it with the other. Gregory smiled like he just conquered Rome. Glad to have you on board with Apex too. 0. I stood. Walked out. Didn't look back. And by the time I hit my desk, I had already texted Marcus. It's happening. Marcus met me that night at a dive bar 2 blocks from his firm. The kind of place where every drink is $5 and the booths haven't been reupholstered since Clinton was in office. I laid out everything, word for word. The meeting. The smug look on Gregory's face. The exact phrasing of, not mission critical. Marcus didn't blink. He just sipped his beer, leaned forward, and said, So, they breached. Yep, I said. They cut my comp by over 25%. Benefits gutted. All of it documented. He pulled out his laptop. You still have the licensing contract? I had already forwarded it to him. He opened the file, scrolled down to clause 6.3 and pointed. Right here. Licensing is contingent on maintaining original employment terms and compensation. They change that, they void the deal. He kept scrolling. And look at this. Clause 9.2, immediate termination of software access upon license breach. I didn't breathe. Marcus turned the screen toward me. They're done. You pull the plug, they lose access to Nova. Completely. And legally. You don't even need to give notice. You are the notice. I just sat there. You okay? He asked. No. Not even close. Then we'll do this right. We spent the next 4 hours writing a revocation notice that could be framed in a law school textbook. Every clause cross-referenced. Every breach documented. Every timestamped email included. At 11:32 p.m., we finished. Marcus closed his laptop and looked at me. You're ready? I didn't answer right away. I thought about the team, the developers who relied on me, the project managers who trusted Nova, the intern who cried when the old system crashed and wiped out her timecards. And I thought about Gregory. And that sentence. You fix computers. I nodded. Do it. Marcus hit send. The legal notice went to the entire executive team, the board of directors, and Apex's general counsel. A kill switch embedded in Nova's backend code waited for one thing, a change in the licensing status field. At that moment, it still read active. But not for long. Friday, 4:46 p.m. I sat alone in my office, watching the clock tick towards 0 like I was holding a detonator. The revocation notice had been delivered, certified mail, email, internal legal portal, everything. Their legal team had it. Gregory had it. Amanda, the CFO with resting shark face, had it. None of them responded. Not a single word. Until 4:47 p.m. sharp. That's when I logged into the admin console of Nova, went to the licensing backend, and flipped the status from active to terminated. And just like that, Apex's entire operational system shut down. Across 3 office locations, every dashboard, every process, every client portal, dead. No logins. No order tracking. No analytics. No payroll. Nothing. I stood up and walked to the window overlooking the open floor plan. Monitors started blinking red. Phones rang. I watched the ripple of panic move across the room like a wave. Someone shouted, "Is this a system-wide crash?" Then louder, "I just lost all my access." Then yelling. I walked back to my desk, poured myself the last of my cold coffee, and waited. At 4:52, my desk phone rang. "Gregory." I answered like I'd just been interrupted during a nap. "Yeah? What the hell did you just do?" he barked. "I terminated your license," I said calmly. "Per Clause 6(3) of our agreement. You can't do that. This is extortion. You're holding the company hostage. I'm enforcing a contract. The same one you broke when you slashed my pay. The moment that change hit HR, your license became void." I could hear phones ringing in the background. People shouting. The chaos was building. Gregory lowered his voice, like that would change anything. "Be reasonable, Jesse." I laughed. "You want reasonable? Reasonable would have been valuing the guy who built your entire company backbone before you started swinging an axe." "I didn't know." "You didn't care." I cut in. "Now you do." I hung up. At 5:01 p.m., I powered down my terminal, slid my coffee mug and a framed photo of my niece into a box, walked out through reception to the sound of total corporate bedlam. The next morning, Bloomberg ran the headline: "Apex Systems Collapse. Licensing Breach Shuts Down $1.2 Tech Firm Overnight." And me? I had pancakes. By Sunday, Apex was in free fall. Stock was down 62%. Clients were panicking. 7 had already filed breach of contract notices. More were threatening lawsuits. Without Nova, Apex couldn't fulfill shipments, process invoices, or even run payroll. Their servers were basically just humming towers of sadness. My phone lit up nonstop. Emails. Texts. Calls. Everything from "Please come back" to "We'll see you into the Stone Age." I ignored all of it. Then Sunday at 3:47 p.m., I got the email that changed everything. Subject: Urgent meeting request. From Apex Board of Directors. "We would appreciate the opportunity to discuss a resolution. Please contact us at your earliest convenience." I forwarded it to Marcus. He called 2 minutes later. "They're ready to deal." By Monday morning, we sent them a proposal. $7. $8 million one-time licensing reinstatement fee. $2 million annually going forward, paid quarterly. Full restoration of my compensation plus a 40% raise. Immediate termination of Gregory Vaughn, CEO. Formal recognition of my ownership of Nova. A protected employment contract, bulletproof and lawyer-proof. Marcus looked at me when we finalized it. "You sure about the Gregory clause? That might be the hardest sell. Then they don't get the system back," I said. Tuesday, 9 a.m. Marcus and I walked into Apex HQ. The place looked like someone had declared martial law. Phones ringing off the hook. People with clipboards pacing like they were doing triage. We were escorted upstairs to the big conference room. The entire board was there. 8 suits, 7 of whom looked like they hadn't slept since Friday. Gregory sat at the end of the table, pale and twitchy. Harrison, the chairman, stood. "Jesse, thank you for coming. Let's cut to it. We've lost over $1 billion in market value since Friday. We're hemorrhaging cash. We need those systems operational immediately." Marcus slid the printed proposal across the table. Harrison read it. The board passed it around. Gregory's face turned scarlet. "This is blackmail." Marcus smiled politely. "It's a licensing agreement. Or you're welcome to build your own platform from scratch. Might take 5 years?" The room went still. Patricia, one of the directors, looked at Gregory. "Did you know Jesse owned the system?" I knew he worked on it. But you didn't read the contract before cutting his pay?" Gregory didn't answer. Harrison looked at the board. "All in favor of accepting the terms?" Hands went up. 6 out of 8. Majority. Then he turned to Gregory. "You're resigned by close of business today. Make it quiet, or we fire you for cause and you walk away with nothing." Gregory stood, jaw tight. "You're making a huge mistake." "No," I said. "You did that when you said I just fix computers." He stormed out. No one followed him. Harrison looked back at me. "You'll have your money by end of day." Access restored once funds are confirmed? Yep. And one more thing. Name it. I want Patricia as the new CEO. She looked shocked. Me? You're the only one in this room who asked the right questions. There was a beat. Then Harrison said, all in favor? Unanimous. At 10:47 a.m. the next morning, the funds cleared. At 10:48 a.m. Apex came back online. And I came back to work. Walking back into Apex that Wednesday felt like something out of a movie. The silence when I stepped off the elevator? Palpable. Heads turned. People froze mid-conversation. One guy literally dropped his coffee. The intern who used to call me Tech Wizard whispered, "Holy SH," and didn't finish. I wasn't wearing a cape. Just jeans and my old hoodie. But to them, I'd gone full John Wick on a Fortune 500 company and walked away with a raise. My team? They applauded. Full on clapping like I'd just won an Oscar for Best Vengeance. Rachel, my lead dev, high-fived me so hard it left a mark. "Welcome back, boss," she said. "We kept your chair warm. And your mug." Ron, the old VP who believed in me back in the demo days, pulled me into his office. "You saved us," he said, voice low. "Gregory was about to slash the infrastructure team in half. You stopped him cold." I saved myself. I told him, "You all just got lucky I brought the storm with me." Patricia called me in that afternoon. Her office, formerly Gregory's, looked different now. Gone were the sterile motivational posters. Replaced with a whiteboard full of strategy notes, sticky notes, actual ideas. She stood when I walked in. "Let's make one thing clear," she said. "What happened under Gregory? That doesn't happen again. Ever." She handed me a new contract. Same terms we'd agreed to, plus one addition. Guaranteed 5% annual raise and performance bonuses tied to system uptime. I stared at it. "You didn't have to add this." "I did. Because Apex lives and dies on the thing you built. And because leadership that doesn't pay people what they're worth doesn't deserve to lead." I signed. Over the next month, everything changed. Patricia gave IT actual budget. We hired 5 new engineers, one of whom came from Amazon. Our documentation got overhauled. Our incident response time dropped by 80%. And Marcus? Marcus was having the time of his life. "This case is going on my website," he told me. "Right under Savage Contract Enforcement." The quarterly licensing payments hit on time. $500,000 clean, every 3 months. I bought a condo in Midtown. Paid off my student loans. Started a scholarship fund for first-gen STEM students at Georgia Tech. Even sent my niece to space camp. One day, I got an email from Gregory. He was suing me. $8 million, claiming I sabotaged the company and damaged his career. I forwarded it to Marcus, who called me 5 minutes later, laughing. We countersued. The judge dismissed his case as frivolous and hit him with $42,000 in legal fees. Marcus framed the ruling. It hangs on his office wall. Still want the end of this ride? Thursday morning, 2 months after the dust settled, something wild happened. TechPulse magazine named me one of their top 10 most disruptive innovators of the year. I didn't even know I'd been nominated. Marcus called me first. "You made the list, man. Right under the guy who invented AI-driven farm equipment, and 2 spots above the woman who's building underwater data centers." That's a sentence I never thought I'd hear. "You're famous, Jesse. Embrace it. Also, please don't forget I'm the one who told you to keep that clause in." I laughed. "You're on the Christmas bonus list, don't worry." The article dropped online at noon. Within 3 hours I had 6 voicemails from venture capital firms, 2 interview requests from tech podcasts, and 1 email from an Apex board member that just said, "Damn. We really blew it." Patricia forwarded it to me with nothing but a laughing emoji. She was thriving. Under her leadership, Apex had regained 92% of its pre-crash market value, retained most of its top clients, and launched a new division focused on scalable infrastructure. She offered me a cut of the revenue generated by the licensing deals I'd brought in, and when I said no, she quietly deposited a $250,000 bonus anyway. I split half with my team. In October, Apex closed a $94 million contract with a government logistics agency. The board gave Patricia a standing ovation. She passed the credit straight to us. "We have a platform that works, thanks to Jesse and his team," she said in front of the entire company. And I just sat there, blinking, like, wait, we get mentioned now? I got used to that. Respect. Recognition. Invitations to meetings I used to be excluded from. Instead of being told to just make it work, I was being asked, what do you think we should do? And the best part? Nova was still mine. I wasn't trapped anymore. If Apex ever made the same mistake twice, I had options. License it elsewhere. Expand. Build a second product. I wasn't just Jesse from IT anymore. I was Jesse, the platform. I stood in my apartment, watching the latest $500,000 licensing payment hit my account. No champagne. No party. Just a quiet moment, a deep breath, and a subtle smile. I wasn't just the guy who fixed printers anymore. I was the guy who built the backbone, pulled the plug, and rewrote the rules. They told me I didn't matter. Now they pay me to keep the lights on. Funny how that works.